Okay, we are ready to begin our Thursday night shiur on the Parsha. This week's Parsha, of course, is Parsha Vayeishev. And once again, I remind everyone that we are muting everybody. So if you want to speak from this point on, you'll have to unmute yourself. Before we begin, I want to wish everyone a lichtikin Hanukkah, a very wonderful Hanukkah. I'm going to unmute you just for a moment. I want to wish everyone a wonderful lichtikin Hanukkah. Many people are under the impression that there's a specific mitzvah to eat donuts and latkes, but the fact of the matter is absolutely no seudah is of any mitzvah quality whatsoever. The only time it becomes a mitzvah is if one says divrei Torah. I should mention that when I was in the yeshiva served latkes on Hanukkah. And I want to tell you that the latkes in the yeshiva were very similar to the miracle of Hanukkah. If you want to know how, I'll tell you. One latke burned 8 days.
In your stomach.
Yeah, in your stomach, right. Okay, there we go.
Harry, he's a comedian.
Okay, there we go. Well, everybody's muted now, and we're going to be getting to work on the Parsha. So the Parsha Vayeishev starts with a very interesting statement, and I'm just going to mention in passing a comment on this particular first pasuk. It says Vayeishev Yaakov, and Yaakov dwelled. Now the word Yeshev means settle down permanently. It's like from the word sitting, but it says Be'eretz Megurei Aviv, in the land of the strangeness. Megurei comes from the word ger. In the land of the strangeness of his father, Be'eretz Canaan, the land of Canaan. Now, Reb David Feinstein Zal points out a very interesting thing. We know that the land of Israel was not to be given to the Jewish people until after the Jews came back from Egypt. Until then, they were supposed to be strangers. As it said to Avraham Avinu, in the Bris Ben Absarim, God said to Avraham at the covenant between the pieces, he said, Yadoa Teidai, you should surely know, Ki ger yezaracha, that your seed will be a stranger, and it will be for 400 years. And the 400 years begins with the birth of Yitzchak. So when it says Megurei Aviv, it means that his father Yitzchak was a stranger. As long as Yaakov lived in his father's house, he was also a stranger. But when he went to Lavan and he fought, after he left Lavan and he was on the way to meet Esav, and he fought with the Malach of Esav, and his name was changed to Yisrael, he now became not someone who was lowly and holding on to the heel, but he now became someone who was all-powerful because he was called Yisrael, since it means Sar, a master with God. So he became a master. And so when he came back to the land of his father and met his father once again, he figured, okay, I'm back in Canaan and my name is Yisrael. I'm going to be living here as a Vayeshev. But it wasn't time yet, because it wasn't ready until 4 generations had passed, and they had not yet passed. And consequently, even though he wanted to live in that land, in the land of Canaan, as a boss, you might say, as Yisrael, Hashem organized it, that it would definitely not be now, but it would be sometime down the road after what happens in this week's Sedra with Yosef and his brothers. So that's just the introduction. I want to go to the pasuk here in pasuk Hey, a very interesting pasuk. It says, Vayachalom Yosef Chalom. And Yosef dreamt a dream, Vayaged le'echov, and he told it to his brothers. Now, the Torah does not tell us what the dream was. It just says, Vayaged le'echov, Vayosifu od, snow oso. And they continued to hate him even more. They continued to hate him. When my daughter was a young girl, I remember at the Shabbos table, we were discussing this pasuk, and she asked a very good question. The question was, I don't understand something. In the next pasuk, it says, he said to them, Shimuna, listen, please. Achalom hazeh asher chalomti, this dream that I have dreamed. We were bundling sheaves in the field. And my sheaf got up and it stood straight and tall. And all your sheaves came around. Whoa! Can you imagine a family get together? They're all sitting around the Shabbos table, and Yosef, little Joe, right? He's the next to the youngest. And he comes up and he says, I had a dream, and you have to hear this dream. And I was the big bundle, and you all gathered around and bowed down to me. You all bowed down to me. So the next pasuk says, Vayomer lo Echav, his brother said to him, What are you doing? Amaloch timloch aleinu. You're going to be king over us. Imashal timshal bani. You're going to rule over us. Vayosifu od sinoo so. They even hated him more. Al chalom osavi al devarav, because of his dreams on his words. So the question she asked was, I don't understand this. Yosef was supposed to be a very, very bright guy. And he was not a youngster at this point. At this point, Yosef was already, as it says in the beginning of the Pasuk, Ben Shva Esrei Shana. He was 17 years old. Now, he was 17 and mature. He wasn't a baby. But he goes and he tells them a dream that's guaranteed to make hatred. How could he do such a thing? How could Yosef come and tell them a dream which is sure to bring out hate? That's one question. Here's another question. It says in this pasuk that Yosef dreamt a dream and he told it to his brothers and they hated him. But now he didn't yet tell it to his brothers. Why does it say over here they hated him? He didn't even yet tell it to them. Okay, next pasuk, he tells them the whole dream, and then it says, by Yosifu od snow, so they hated him even more. Okay, now I can understand, because he told them the dream. But over here, he didn't yet tell them the dream. Why is it that he's telling them this dream? Doesn't he know that this is guaranteed to make enmity in the family? Well, one of the reasons it's going to make everybody hate him is because he seems to be taking the kingship. They said, Amaloch timloch aleinu, are you going to become king over us? Now, every one of us knows who was the one who was the king in the family. Every one of us knows who the king was. David was the king. And David came from the tribe of Yehuda. So he seems to be taking the reins of kingship away from the king. That's called a mored b'malchus. You're rebelling against the king. Someone who rebels against the king, by the way, in Jewish law, just take a look at the Rambam and he'll tell you, you rebel against the king, you're chayav misa. Someone who rebels against the king is chayav misa. So they began to really hate him because he seemed to be rebelling against the king. So the question goes back. Why did he tell them these dreams? Why? I want to show you an interesting medrash right here in Bereshis Rabbah. Look what it says. This is a medrash. Bereshis Rabbah. All right, it's Perek Pei Dalet, and it's Maimer Yud, and it says like this: Vayachalom Yosef Chalom, and Yosef dreamt the dream. Vayomer Aleihem, and he said to them, Shimuna, like we learned in the pasuk before. Shimuna hachalom hazeh asher chalomti. Listen to my dream. Omar, says the Medrash, Kach yiyu anavim mochichem eschem. This same way are the prophets in the future going to teach you. They're going to be mochiach you. They're going to reprove you. They're going to rebuke you with these words. As Micha said, Shimu na es Hashem Omar. Listen carefully to what Hashem says. What does the Medrash coming to tell us here? Are you telling me that when we read this pasuk back here, and he said to his brothers, Shimuna, here it is, Shimuna, right in this pasuk, Shimuna. When he said Shimuna, the Medrash says, Yosef was saying to them, I want you to know, when I say Shimuna, this is the way the prophets in the future are going to talk to the Jewish people. The prophets in the future are going to say Shimuna. Listen, please, to this. They're going to say Shimuna. That's what they're going to say. They're going to say that you better listen. And the reason they're going to say this is because this is the language that the prophets are going to speak in. They're going to use the language of Shimuna. So because the prophets are going to use the language Shimuna, I'm using the language Shimuna. And consequently, what happened over here is the following. And here's the answer to the question. The Kasav Sofer comes along and he says like this. He says, Shimuna is a language of prophecy. There's a din in the Shulchan Aruch that a prophet who has a nevuah is not allowed to hold that nevuah back. A prophet must say his nevuah. If a prophet does not say his nevuah, says the Rambam, he is chayiv misa, because Hashem gave him this nevuah for a purpose. Along comes the Kasav Sofer, and look what he says here. Vayachalom Yosef chalom. And Yosef dreamt the dream. And now begins the dream. The dream begins with the words Vayaged le'echav Vayosifu od seno oso. The dream was the following. The dream was that he is going to tell them his dream, and because he tells them the dream, they are going to hate him. That's the dream. Vayachalom Yosef chalom. And Yosef dreamt the dream. And what was the dream? Vayaged le'echav. He told it to his brothers. Vayosifu od seno oso. And they continued to hate him. And Vayomer aleim. He said in the dream, and he had to tell them this because this is all the prophecy. And he told them this. And sure enough, the prophecy is true because Vayosifu od seno oso al chalom oso v'al dvarim. They hated him even more. And he had no choice. So the question was, why did he tell it to them if he knew it was going to make enmity? There's a reason why he told it to them. You know what that reason is? He had to. You know why? Because that was Hashem's prophecy. You got to tell it to them. It's going to cause hatred. And I want you to know that's part of what I'm trying to teach the Jewish people when it's written up in Parsha Vayeishev. Don't make enemies. Don't go and tattletale. Don't say Lashon Hara. Don't try to be the king when you're not supposed to be the king. And if you get a prophecy and you must tell it over, no matter what the consequences, you better tell it over. And so Yosef wasn't going against logic. He was using logic. What he was doing was saying as clear as day, I must tell over this dream. And because I must tell over this dream, even though it's going to cause hatred towards me, I have no choice. I must tell this dream to you. And sure enough, it caused a lot of trouble. Okay. That's the end of the introduction here. I want to go to the next episode. The Torah tells us that Yosef's brothers went to take care of the sheep in the city of Shechem. All right? So Yosef's father says to him, listen, your brothers are going and they're taking care of the sheep in Shem. I want you to go. And Vayom Elohi Neni, he says, here I am. And now why did he have to say here I am? Because he didn't really want to go. You know why? Because Shem is well known as a place that causes trouble for the Jewish people. As the Chazal tell us, Shem is a makom muchan lepuranos. It's a place where trouble happens to the Jewish people. Do you know how much trouble happened to the Jewish people in Shem? Some very, very, very bad things happened to the Jewish people in Shem. Number one, in last week's Sedra, Dinah was abused by the wicked Hamor ben Shem. Right? That's number one. Actually, it was Shem ben Hamor. What's the difference? According to Chazal, it was Shem ben Hamor, Hamor ben Shem, it doesn't matter. So that's number one. Secondly, when the kingdom of the Jewish people was split in half, it was split in half at the city of Shechem. To this day, the city of Shechem is a hotbed of violence. It's a hotbed of terrorism. It's a hotbed of evil. Do you know what the Arabs named the city of Shechem? Any of you know what they name it? What the modern day name of Shechem is? We call it Shechem. Do you know what the Arabs call Shechem? You can unmute yourself, and if you know the term, please let me know. Anybody know what the English name or the Arab name that's on the map of Shechem to this day, except on the Israeli map, except the Jewish map? But as far as the Goyim are concerned, you know what they call Shechem today? I'm going to tell you. Nablus. The name of Shechem is Nablus. You know what Nablus means? It comes from the Hebrew word naval. Naval means disgusting, terrible, low person. It's a nevala, like nevela.
Nivel pair, right?
Nivel pair,
Yeah.
all of that. It's related to the concept of the most disgusting terminology. But you know why they call it Nablus? Because when they abused Dinah, the brothers said, Ki nevala osa b'Yisrael. They did a disgusting thing to our sister. But guess what? They're very proud of it to this day. Aha! Look what we did to the Jewish people. They call it Nablus. So Shechem is a very bad place. And when Yisrael tells Yosef to go to Shechem, he don't want to go, but he's a loyal son. So he says he named you. So his father tells him, go see about what's going on with your brother. Okay? See what's going on. Tell me what's happening. And they send him from the valley of Hebron, and he comes to Shechem. And he meets a man along the way. And Yosef's Toeh Basodeh. He's wandering in the fields. So the man asks him, what are you looking for? See, he says, Es achaya no ki mevakesh. I'm seeking my brothers. Please tell me, where are they pasturing? Okay? Watch this. The man says, Nos umizeh. They've left this area. Kishamati omrim, I heard them say, Neilcha Dosaina, let's go to the city of Dosan. Vayelech Yosef achar echav, and Yosef goes after his brothers, Vayimtzaim b'Dosan. Sure enough, he finds them in the city of Dosan. Okay, he finds them in the city of Dosan. Okay, let's see what happens next. Please keep in mind this Vayimtzaim b'Dosan, okay? And he found them in Dosan, okay? By the way, have you ever heard of the city of Dosan before this? No, doesn't mention it. Okay. Have you ever heard of the city of Dosan after this? Well, if you know Tanakh, you may know that it's mentioned again, but not in Chumash. But let's see. Vayiru oso meirachok. They saw him from far away, and before he came there, they plotted to kill him. And one said to the other, "Here comes the dreamer, and let's go and kill him, and we'll see what happens with his dreams." Okay, we already discussed that they were a Beis Din. They were the top Beis Din Sanhedrin of the world. They were the Shiftei Kah. They were the tribes of God, and they had the right to judge. And their brother was trying to usurp the kingship. He was a Moreh B'Malchus. They punished him with death. So Reuven hears about this, and he saves them, and he says, "Listen, lo nakenu nafesh. Let's not kill him." Reuven says to them, "Don't spill his blood. Let's throw him in the pit." It was Reuven's idea to throw him in the pit. So then he could come back and save them. He could come back and save them. All right? So when Yosef came, they took off the coat of many colors. Of course, that was what stuck in their eyes. And they threw him into the pit. Now comes one of the five most famous words in all of Chumash Bereshis. The Habor Reik, and the pit was empty. Ein bo mayim. There was no water in it. Okay, Rabosa, you can unmute yourself for a second. What does Rashi say about this? And the pit was empty, there was no water. What?
Scorpions.
What does he say?
Snakes.
Snakes? How does he learn it out from the pasuk? Excuse me.
Oh.
How does he learn it out from the pasuk?
In Bomayim said about rake. In Bomayim, something has to be this.
Okay, it says Abor Rek. Mordechai is 100% right. It says Abor Rek. The pit was empty. Ein bo mayim. There was no water in it. Wait a minute. If the pit was empty, of course there's no water in it. Why do you have to say the pit is empty? There's no water in it. You know what Rashi says about this? Rashi says about this, Mayim ein bo. There was no water in it. Aval nechoshim v'akrabim yesh bo. But snakes and scorpions, there was in it. Meaning, the pit was empty of anything good, but snakes and scorpions it did have. Of course, this gives us many, many questions. If Reuven wanted to save him, why did he throw him into a pit with snakes and scorpions? Why did he do that? It doesn't make any sense. Why did he throw him into a pit with snakes and scorpions? Okay? Now, trust me, the Gemara in Shabbos asks this question and gives this answer. But the Gemara in Shabbos tells us an interesting thing. How come Reuven didn't see the snakes and scorpions? So the Gemara in Shabbos says, when you light the menorah, the menorah has to be a certain height from the ground. The minimum height off the ground, anybody know? What's the minimum height off the ground it must be?
10 tvachim?
No.
20?
The minimum height, the minimum.
Oh, minimum. Oh.
What's the minimum? 3 tvachim.
3 tvachim.
It should be between 3 and 10 tvachim off the ground.
Just like a sukkah.
Right? You know why? The reason is because at 10 tvachim, which is about this height, the height you're sitting on, which is about 40 inches, so it's 3.5 feet.
Right.
You can't use that light to read by, because the light to read by has to be above you, not at your height.
Mm-hmm.
But what is the highest it could be? It could be more than 10 tvachim. It could be pretty high. But what's the highest it could be? Anybody know?
20?
20 what?
Tvachim?
Nope.
20 amos.
Good guess. 20 amos. Right.
20 amos.
20 amos. Right. How many?
We learned it out from the sukkah.
How many feet?
We learned it out from sukkah and Erevin.
Excellent. Who said that?
Israel.
Israel, welcome. Baruch Hashem. Okay. It's up to 20 amos. How many feet about? The largest measure of an amos.
Amos is 20 amos. 20 is about 40 feet.
2 feet. Okay, 40 feet. There we go. Okay. So Why can't the menorah be higher than 40 feet?
Because
The
you can't see
answer
it. You
is
can't see it. You can't
you
see it.
can't see it. You won't see it when you're walking in the street. And one of the main mitzvahs of the menorah of Hanukkah, and I'm muting everybody once again, one of the main mitzvahs of the miracle of Hanukkah is Parsume Nisa. You have to be able to see it. Now, if you're walking in the street, your eye doesn't go up 40 feet. It might go up 10 feet, 15 feet. It doesn't go up 40 feet. Therefore, you won't see it. Oh, now I understand it. This pasuk and that law are written next to each other in the Gemara. You know why? It's just that Reuven did not know that there were snakes and scorpions in there. Because had he known, he never would have thrown them in there. Never. He couldn't see it because it was more than 20 feet deep. More than 20 amas deep. Okay. There are a lot of questions on this. We're not going to go into it. Let's go further. We want to get to our main theme here. Anyway, at this point, they all sat down to eat bread. Was their conscience bothering them? No, they're sitting down to eat. Their conscience not bothering them because they ruled this man is dangerous. Yishmael tried to kill Yitzchak. Esav wanted to kill Yaakov. This Yosef wants to kill Yehuda. We're finished with that stuff. We don't need another Esav. We don't need him. He's a rebellious, no good sort. He says Lashon Hara. We got to get rid of him. So they sat down to eat bread. And then they decided to sell him into Egypt because they said, what, we should kill him. Let's sell him to the Yishmaelim. We're not going to kill him. And sure enough, Midyanim come and he sells him and so on and so forth. Okay, Pasuk Chav Tes. Vayoshav Reuven el Abor. And Reuven returns to the pit. Yeah? V'hine ein Yosef Babor. And Yosef's not there. Vayikra es begado. You know what he does? He rips his clothing. Vayoshav el Achav, he returns to his brothers, he says, Hayelad einenu. What happened to the kid? Where did he go? What am I going to do now? I wanted to save him, and he's not around. So when Pasuk says, Reuven returned to the pit. What do you mean return to the pit? Let me ask you something, and you can unmute yourselves now. Was Reuven involved in the sale?
No.
Absolutely not. He wasn't there.
Right.
So where was he? Where was he? Where did he go? If he wasn't there, huh? Okay, let's see if we can find where he went.
With the beds, with Yaakov's bed.
What was going on?
He switched the beds.
Okay,
Right.
that was last week's Edra.
Okay, I'm a little behind. Okay.
But you're on the right track.
Okay.
Okay, it says here, and here Rashi quotes this medrash. Vayoshav Reuven, and Reuven returned. Says Rashi, B'mchiraso lo hayasham. When he sold, when Yosef was sold, he wasn't there. You know why? Shehigia yomo leilech u'lishamesh esaviv. Because it was his turn to take care of his father.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll leave that aside. We're going to go to the next one. Because the next one is the medrash we're going to focus on. Dava acher, another interpretation. Now watch this carefully. Osuk hoya isaka uvatanisa. He was involved with his sackcloth and fasting. Why? Al shebilbel yitzue aviv. Because he disturbed his father's couch. In last week's Edra, Rachel died. After Rachel died, Yaakov had 4 wives. Rachel couldn't be alive when they came to Eretz Yisrael because you're not allowed to marry 2 sisters in Eretz Yisrael. Before the Torah was given, it was only kept in Eretz Yisrael. outside Eretz Yisrael. He married 2 sisters, but by the time he came back, Rachel could not be alive anymore. So she died on the way and died in Beth-El, which was the border at that time outside Yerushalayim. Today, Beth-El and Yerushalayim are so close to each other, you can walk from one to the other in 5 minutes. But at that time, Beth-El was Ba'ot Kivras Eretz Lavo Efrosa. It was a road on the way to Efrat. In the meantime, Reuven was very upset because Yaakov, who had 3 other wives left, Rachel's sister was Leah. Rachel's handmaid was Bilhah. After Rachel died, Yaakov moved his main residence, instead of into Leah, which was Reuven's mother, he moved it into Bilhah's tent. And Reuven was very hurt for his mother's sake. It was an embarrassment to his mother. So he wanted to let his father know, Abba, you didn't do the right thing here. And so he messed up the bed to make it look that somebody was in that tent, to give Yaakov the message, you didn't do the right thing. But that was a mistake. Reuven should not have mixed in to the married life of his father. That's lack of kibbutz aim. And it was a big mistake. So today, just that day, he decided that he is going to do tshuva. He realized he made a terrible mistake that day. And he decided to do tshuva. So what did he do? He put on a sackcloth. He fasted because he made that terrible mistake. Rabosai, do you have a question now? Of course you do. This happened last week. Well, it actually happened years before. Why is he doing tshuva now? Why all of a sudden did he wake up to do tshuva? Huh? Let's go back a bit. Okay? We'll go back to the psukim. Right? So, the brothers are all there. When they see him coming, all the brothers, they saw him coming. What? All the brothers saw him coming. They said, let's kill him and throw him into the pit. And then we'll throw him into one of the pits, and we'll say an evil animal ate him up. Okay. Reuven hears this. He tries to save them. He said, no, we can't do that. So Reuven says, don't kill anything. Sure enough, they sat down to eat bread. They sell him. Reuven comes down to the pit. Yosef's not there. Where was Reuven till now? Where was he? Reuven was taking care of his sackcloth and ashes. How come all of a sudden he's doing tshuva now, Rabbi Say? Why is he doing tshuva right this minute? Rabbi Yoshe ben Soloveitchik Zatzal explains so beautifully. He says, Reuven realized something. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zevulun, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. They're all there. They've got a problem with their brother Yosef. They don't know what to do. If you have a problem and you don't know in Jewish life what to do, what are you supposed to do? Let's say you have a shaila. I don't know what to do. Should I report this guy to the authorities? Should I go into his house and beat him to his living daylights? Should I tell everybody what an evil person he is? I don't know what to do. Let me ask you, Rabosai, what are you supposed to do if you don't know in Jewish life what to do? What do you do? We all know what you do. You ask a shaila. You don't know what to do. You ask a shaila. Am I allowed to do this? What should I do? You ask advice of the Gadol Hador. Was the Gadol Hador of alive over here? Was there a Gadol Hador over here? Actually, there was more than one Gadol Hador over here. Okay? There was more than one Gadol Hador. I'm unmuting you. Who were the two Gadolei Hador who was there at that time?
Oh, Yaakov.
And?
Yitzchak.
Right.
Oh, no, he passed away, didn't he?
No, he did not. He didn't
Oh,
pass away till much later.
Later.
Okay, now we're back to mute, everybody. Okay. All right, here we go. All right. So, yeah, Yitzchak's alive. The Zokain is there. The elder is there. Why didn't they ask a Shaila? Who realized that they made a big mistake? Reuven realized. He said to himself, why don't they ask a Shaila? They're going to go and kill him? That's terrible. Why don't they ask the Gadol Hador what to do? They didn't ask. And then Reuven says to himself, wait a minute. I did the same thing. I made the same mistake. I was upset that my father moved into Bilhah's tent. When I was upset, what should I have done? I should have gone to my grandfather Yitzchak. I should have asked him, what should I do? I have a Gadol Hador there. Why didn't I ask him? I made a terrible mistake. I didn't realize it till now, because now I see how terrible it is when you have a Gadol and you don't ask him. The brothers didn't ask. And consequently, because they didn't ask, what happened? They made a terrible, terrible mistake. And that's why Reuven returned and he gets all upset. I made a terrible mistake before. I realized it now. And when I went to do tshuva, I was shav. I returned. I did tshuva. But because of my mistake, they just made another mistake. And it's all my fault. And that's why Reuven said over here, Vayomer hayeled einenu, the kid's not here. V'ani ona ani bo. What am I supposed to do now? I am the one who's at fault. You hear this? Okay. Anyway, we read a lot about this so far. We're not finished. We have to explain what was the mistake. Look at this. They see Yosef coming. Vayiru oso me'rachok. They see him from far away. Let me ask you something. When it says they see him from far away, what possible meaning does that imply? Vayiru oso me'rachok. They see him from far away. Could they see him clearly? Obviously not. It's like he's very far away. They can't quite make out who and what he is. I want to take you to Melachim Beis. I want to teach you a little bit of Tanakh. Watch this. Elisha the Navi is the Navi of the time. Eliyahu Navi passes away. His Talmud Elisha takes over. You hear this? The pasuk is telling us what's going on. Umelech Aram hayonilcham b'Yisrael. The king of Aram was having a war with the Jewish people. So he asks advice from his servants, and he tells them, El mokom ploni almoni tachanosi. I, the king of Aram, I'm going to hide in this particular place. And when the king of Israel goes by, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill that king of Israel and win the war. What happens? Elisha, the Ish Elokim, the man of God, the Navi, he sends the king of Israel, he sends him a message. Hishomer me'avar ha'mokom hazeh ki sham aram nechitim. Don't go that road. I know you're planning to go that road, and everyone knows you're planning to go that road. Don't do it. The king of Aram is waiting to kill you. You hear this? This is Malachim Beis, Perek Vav. So Vayishlach Melech Yisrael al Hamakom Asher Hava Lo Elisha Lakim. The king of Israel sends messengers to find out, and they're careful. And sure enough, they see that the king of Aram is planning to kill him. Lo achas v'lo shtayim. This didn't happen once. This didn't happen twice. This happened many, many times. In other words, every time the king of Aram set a trap to kill the king of Israel, Elisha, the Navi, knew that he's setting the trap. He warns the king of Israel, and sure enough, what happens? The king of Israel doesn't go there. Pasuk Yud Aleph. Vayisoelei melech Aram al hadavar hazeh. The heart of the king of Aram is in turmoil about this. He's in turmoil. So he calls all his servants and he said to them, Mi shalonu el melech Yisrael. Who's the spy here? Who's telling the king of Israel what's going on? Watch this. Vayomer echad me'avadav. One of the servants of the king of Aram says to him, Lo adoni hamelech. No, that's not so. Ki Elisha Hanavi. It's Elisha the prophet, Asher Yisrael, who's living amongst the Jewish people. Yagid lemelech. He's the one who tells the king of Israel, watch this. Es hadvarim asher tedaber b'chadar mishkavecha. What you are speaking about quietly in your bedroom, the king, the Navi Elisha knows. So don't blame any of us. It's none of us. It's Elisha. Elisha knows what you're about to do. Okay? All right, you got the picture so far? Okay. Vayomer, the king of Aram says, L'chu u'r'u eichohu. Let's go find this Elisha. Ve'eshlach v'ekechehu. I'm going to send and take him, and I'm going to kill him. Vayaged lo leimar hinei b'dosan. And they tell him, hey, you know where Elisha is? You know where he is? He's in Dosan. Hey, did we ever hear that name before till now? Sure. When Yosef went to look for his brothers and he was wandering around and he couldn't find them, and he meets the Malach Gavriel, and he's wandering around the fields, and the Malach Gavriel says, what are you looking for? And he says, Hasanochi anochi mavakesh. I'm looking for my brothers. So he says to him, Ani shamati omrim neilcha dosaina. I heard that they said, let's go to Dosan. Vayimtza aim b'Dosan. Yosef finds them in Dosan. Right? Right, Rabbosai, right? Okay, watch. Watch what happens here. The king of Aram sends horses and chariots, a big army, and at night they come and they surround the city of Dosan. And in the morning, Elisha gets up and he goes out of the tent, and behold, there's a chayil sovei v'sa'ir v'sus v'lechem. There's a whole army out there. Vayomer na'aro elav. Elisha's little helper says to him, aha, whoa, Adoni, what are we going to do now? We got the whole army of Aram surrounding us. We're in trouble. Look around. We're surrounded. You know, you remember the Lone Ranger? You know, surrounded by the Indians. And Tonto, and Lone Ranger says, we're in big trouble. And Tonto says, what do you mean we, Kimosabi? Because he was an Indian. Okay, good. So he says, what are we going to do? Watch what Elisha says. Vayomer, he says, Al tira, don't worry. We've got more men than they do. We've got more power than they do. Watch this. This is unbelievable. Vayispal Elisha, Vayomer, and Elisha davens and he says, Hashem, Pekach na es einov. Open up my little lad's eyes, v'yireh, so he could see. Vayivkach Hashem es einai hana'ar. Hashem opens his eyes, v'ayar, and he sees. V'hinei hahar malei, and behold, the mountain is filled. Susin v'rechev eish, sivivos Elisha. There are horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha, protecting him. The army of Aram doesn't stand a chance against this. Watch this. Vayerdu Elov, and all the army of Aram comes down to him. Vayizpalel Elisha El Hashem Vayomer, and Elisha prays to God, and he says, Hachnos ha goy hazeh basanveirim. Hit these guys with sanveirim. What's sanveirim? Blindness. Hit them with blindness. Vayakem basanveirim kivar Elisha. And all the soldiers, everybody except Elisha and his nar, are blinded. Vayomer aleim Elisha says to them, this is lo zeh haderech v'lo zeh ha'ir. This isn't the way. This isn't the city. Come with me. I'll take you to the guy you're looking for. You hear this? So they follow him blindly. When they come to the Shomron, he says, open their eyes. Vayiru, vayifkach Hashem b'seineihem. Vayiru, v'hinei b'sol Shomron. And they are in the front. They are in the Shomron. And they're surrounded now by the Jewish soldiers. Okay. There's a lot more going on here. We're going to stop over here. Okay, what happened over here? Let's review quickly. The king of Aram wants to kill Elisha. He sends a whole army. They find Elisha. We're going to go back very quickly. They find Elisha b'Dosan. When they come to Dosan, what does Elisha do? He prays to Hashem. And what does Hashem do to all the soldiers? Hits them with blindness. They weren't able to see. You hear this, Rabbi Say? They weren't able to see, right? What's going on in the city of Dosan in Elisha's time? Everyone's becoming blind, right? They can't see. They can't see. They don't know what they're looking at. They're looking right at Elisha. They're talking to Elisha. But all they see is an ordinary guy. They don't see it's really Elisha. They just see an ordinary guy. Until he opens their eyes and they can see who it really is. Let's go back to our pasuk here in Bereshis. Here we go. Sure enough, Vayimsa ein b'Dosan. He finds them in Dosan. Vayiru oso me'rachok. And they see him from far away. They don't know what they're looking at. I want to take a break for a second. I want to show you something. Shulchan Aruch Orach Hilchos Chanukah. Look what it says here. Shochach ohiziv. If you make a mistake and you didn't light, hidlik in shkiyas achama, and you didn't light when the shkia came, madlik v'holech ad shetichle regel min hashuk. You can light until shetichle regel min hashuk, until the foot stops walking in the marketplace. Shehu kamo chatzi shah, it's about a half an hour. Watch this next line. She'oz, whoops. That was a little bit, I don't want to do that. Take a second, hold on. All right, here we go. She'oz, because then, ha'om ovrim v'shavim. Because that's when the people are going, passing and returning. They're passing and returning. They're passing and returning. And I want to show you another halacha. Mi shelo hidlik, someone who didn't light, ve'eno osid lahadlik, and is not going to light, ve'oso laila, that night, v'gam ein madlikin olav b'tov beitov, and there's no one lighting for him in his house. Watch this. Kisharoeh. Do it again. Kisharoeh. Ner Chanukah. When he sees the candles of Chanukah, Mevarech sha'asa nisim. He makes the bracha on the candles of miracles. Ubeleil rishon mevarech gam shechianu. And on the first night, he even says shechianu. Look at this. I'm going to do it again. Kisharoeh ner Chanukah. when he sees the light of Hanukkah. As long as he sees it, he says the bracha she'asa nisim. And on the first night, he says Shechianu. When you see those candles, do you have to know what you're looking at? Of course, otherwise you can't make the bracha. You have to know what you're looking at. What's the whole law of Parsume Nisa? I have to see the candles. I have to see the candles. Because if I don't know what I'm looking at, I can make a terrible mistake. Vayiru oso meirachok. They saw him from far away in the city of Dosan. The city of Dosan, we know what the city of Dosan is. The city of Dosan is the place where you don't see anything because you're blinded. That's where they met him. What did the mistake the brothers made? They made the mistake of thinking he was an ordinary Joe. He wasn't an ordinary Joe. He was Yosef HaTzadik. They didn't see him clearly. They saw him only meirachok. They saw him only from far away. That's what they did. They didn't really see him. They saw him from far away. And consequently, they didn't know what they were looking at. They didn't know Parsume Nisa. They didn't know that when you look at it, you can make a bracha. Yosef's to make a bracha over. He's a tzaddik. He's a navi. We should have realized about him. We didn't realize about him. We didn't know who he was. And if you don't know what the candles are all about, you can't make a bracha. If you don't see the candles and know what they're about, you can't make a bracha. And the city of Dosan is a place where people are blinded because they only see the outside, they don't see the inside. What's inside those little candles? It's not just an ordinary candle. There's something deep inside those neiros, something unbelievable. There's the fire of truth. There's the fire of the soul of the Jewish people. There's the eternal flame of Yiddishkeit that is able to overcome all obstacles and manage to maintain its integrity, its Torah integrity. It's possible and capable of looking at those lights and seeing a lot more than just the light itself. Look into that flame because in it is the neshama of the Jewish people. Ner Hashem, Nishmatz Adam. The fire of Hashem is the soul of man. And why was it possible? Why was it possible for Reuven? Why was it possible for Reuven to straighten these things out? Because Vayoshav Reuven, because Reuven returned. When you light the candles, you have to light them at a time where there are people who are over the shav. What does over mean? Aveira. He transgressed the shav and he came back. Reuven was Vayoshav. He returned back. And he realized the mistake. Unbelievable, huh, Rabbi say? Unbelievable. Within the Sedra is this awesome concept of the lights of Hanukkah, of seeing into things, not just on the surface, of being capable of recognizing the truth of what you're looking at. And the mistake the brothers made was, even though they thought they were correct, they were looking at him from afar. They were looking at him from the position of Vayiru Osome Rachok. They saw him from far away. They didn't see him from near because they found them in Dosan, and Dosan's a place of blindness. When you light those Hanukkah candles and you look at them, you realize that unless I look at them and see for them what they are, I better be careful before I do that so that I can say the bracha with feeling and understanding, because you have to look at them and see what's in them, just like the brothers were supposed to look at Yosef and see. And had they done that, they would never have done the sale. And when they finally see him for who he really is later on, that is when they beg forgiveness, because they realize who he really, really was. So the both sides, this is an unbelievable connection between the Parsha and the one Yontif of Hanukkah. And isn't it interesting that every single year we read Parsha Vayeishev on Shabbos Hanukkah? Isn't that a fantastic connection between the two? And we have to be thankful that we have such a beautiful series of
No, I thought Mikates usually read Hanukkah.
It's usually Mikates.
Mikates too. Vayeishev is usually either the Shabbos before or the first Shabbos of, and Mikates is always the second. Yeah. But Vayeishev is invariably connected to it, right? No question about it.
But I can, Rebbe, the thing is, it's Chanukah Lech is also Bano, right?
Yeah.
It's also Bano. So by you looking at it, you're having a no, you're making the bracha.
No. The Hanoah that's usher is to use it. But
they used it to see the light. To see
light? The intellectual light?
No, I'm talking about what we just learned, that the Rebbe said that the Chanukah, the light of the Chanukah Lech is that it brought. Excuse me, it's all right.
Beth-El, what I'm saying there about the light is you're looking at the light, but you're not benefiting from the light. You're not reading by the light.
Right.
You're just using your intellectual powers to contemplate the philosophical.
To be able to make the bracha.
Yeah, you make the bracha because you have to light them. Your bracha is on the lighting. Your bracha is not on the Hanoah. The mitzvah is not for Hanoah. You're just lighting them. But you have to realize what you're lighting. Okay? That's
why isn't it allowed to be more than 10 tvachim?
No, it can be more than 10 tvachim. It can't be 20 hours.
That's a question. So it's also Banoah, so it should be able to be, because people weren't supposed to be able to use the light.
Not use, but look at. They have to look at.
Look at.
They have to look at it.
That's right.
They have to look at it.
That's right.
They're not using it, they're looking at it. Looking is not having Hanoah. The only Hanoah you're having is a vicarious Hanoah. Not a real Hanoah. It's an Hanoah that I'm reading into it. You understand? Okay, any other questions, Hanukkah or otherwise? That we can
No.
Okay, Rabosai. All right, so I wish you all a wonderful Hanukkah. And
Rebbe, one quick question. Friday night, the best thing, I know, I remember I've always done it, but now I'm questioning. Is it better to use a long candle on Shabbos than oil, or should use oil?
If the oil will last long enough, use oil. If it won't last long enough, use a candle. That will last.
And it's got to burn into this man.
It's got to burn a half an hour after dark, which means approximately an hour and a half from the time you light. Okay.
So it's got to burn an hour and a half.
Yes.
Every year.
On Friday. Yes.
Only on Friday.
Yes.
Yeah, but it burns anyway longer than an hour and a half if you use
Not
oil.
all candles burn more.
What candles you use?
Not all.
The oil?
What candle you use?
The oil?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Oil.
Definitely. That's
you put a little oil in it. Won't last. Yeah.
You're right. If you put a little oil, it won't last. That's right. If you fill it up,
a lot of oil.
It'll last more than 3 hours.
Yeah, you'll have to put a lot of oil, like the latkes. You used to say these latkes are very oily. So the lady said, yeah, but they're not late.
Oh, speaking about the latkes now, Rabbi, I'm about to send everybody the virtual latke.
Okay, very good.
Okay, so.
Rabbi.
If you send me a latke through the email, I'm going to end up with squash latkes.
Squash latkes.
Okay.
Very good.
All right.
Rabbi, thank you again. As
have
usual.
a night.
Have a
Thank
prayer
you.
with Hanukkah and a good Erev Shabbos.
Have a good
good Shabbos. And
Shabbos, Bell.
Okay.
Good Shabbos, everybody.
Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos.
Freilich Hanukkah, Rebbe.
Hanukkah, all be gesund.
Not only the Rebbe, everybody.
Everybody should
Amen.
keep this
Amen.
going.
Amen.
See the Daf Yomi guys tomorrow morning on Zoom.
Amen.
And otherwise, everybody else have a wonderful good Shabbos.
Shkoyach Rebbe.
My pleasure. Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos.